Blog Talk Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, leave it in the ring.
And welcome back to another edition of Leaving Radio. I'm your host, Dave Duenas, with my co-host, Mr. Gabriel Montoya. Well, this past weekend, you had Gennady Golovkin get back in the ring. His debut on the Zone at the Madison Square Garden right after the upset win of Andy Ruiz over Anthony Joshua. You know, there was a lot of mixed feelings that I saw out there between fans, and even like Triple G fans that were commenting immediately after the fight of him stopping Steven Rose in the fourth round with the crushing left hook. Surprisingly, he was in the southpaw stance when he threw the shot and he landed it. So, you know, a lot of overwhelming emails about Triple G, about our thoughts and what we think, what's next for him. Gabriel Montoya was going back and forth with a lot of Gennady Golovkin fans. Gennady Golovkin was suspended from Twitter. I don't, you know, there's a couple of reasons some people have suggested why, but let me tell you this. I said this on Twitter. I was like, listen, every time Gennady Golovkin fights a no hope opponent, I always hear the same things, and surprisingly, it's from his own fans. It's not from like other guys, you know, guys that are rooting for Canelo or guys that are rooting for Demetrius Andrade, if he has a lot of fans or not. Because some folks are going to tell me he doesn't have any fans. He's got like 5 fans, right? But BJ Saunders fans or anybody like that. So it comes from the Triple G fans. They say he looks old. He's getting hit a lot. And the reason he's getting hit a lot is because he's not as active as he used to be. And you know, 37 years, he's 37, and, you know, years are catching up. The most avoided guy, it's got wear and tear on him, even though he was avoided and didn't really fight that many folks. But this is the way he looks. And when I'm reading this, I'm like thinking, like, dude, are they preparing themselves if Triple G does get knocked out or something? Because it's really weird how they're you know, tweeting and posting this. You know, and so what I said was this. Here's what I said. What I see is a guy that fights to his opposition. When he fought Cal Brook, I remember everybody was like, dude, he doesn't look good. He looks shot. He's getting hit a lot. And I said, was he getting hit a lot because he was looking old and shot, or was he getting hit a lot because he didn't respect the guy's power? I have to go back with Steven Rose. I don't think he respected anything that Steven Rose threw at him, even though Steve threw a beautiful right hand that landed and turned his cheek. But Golovkin was not having problems finding him, catching him, the way he did with, like, Canelo, which was a very close fight both times that they went around. He saw that he was able to you know, push him back, get him against those ropes, land the shots that he wanted to land at any moment, at any time. Did he take leather? Absolutely, but this is boxing. And I see a lot of punchers that if they're able to, you know, take one to land, well, I'll give you this. You know, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. was notorious for this. He was able to eat 3 to land one big one. And that's how he wore down his opponents, and that's how he stopped them later on in his career. Gennady Golovkin, to me, is almost in like that kind of a trend. You know, he takes the shots, and he's able to dish one big one or 2 or 3 to get his opponent broken down so he can later get that KO. And in 4 rounds, I mean, I could see if it was 10 rounds, then you could say, like, oh, man, he looks really old. It took him a really long time to get started. And you know, that time, Father Time's catching up to him. And, you know, he's not that active. So this is the reason why, you know, it took him 10 or 12 rounds to beat a guy that he's supposed to beat. That I would agree with you. But, man, 3-4 rounds, I mean, I didn't see anything different than what he did to Monterosian and Kell Brook or lesser opponents. I mean, he's kind of built his name off of knocking guys out that don't belong in the ring with him. So, where do I stand with Triple G? I think that he's still a very fresh, young 37-year-old guy. That's got a great amateur pedigree, got good power. But I say this like I've always said about fighters that step up, fighters that they finally fight the top elite. That a lot of times we find out how powerful they are because you got to land more than one big punch to stop an elite fighter, a guy that is supposed to be, your defining moment, right? And I've seen this from a lot of guys that have good punch, guys that are able to knock out lesser opponents. They lay them out, they get them out of there quick, but then once they get in with the guy that is supposed to test the boundaries, it's really not the same. They're the other guy's able to neutralize your best weapon or two. And it's up to that one fighter that we fell in love with, or we think that he's the monster, the Godzilla of the division, to find another road, another path, another alley to go through to find a way to get that person out of there or to win decisive rounds. So, again, Triple G did exactly what he's supposed to do to a guy that nobody knew about. I mean, I didn't even know. I saw this when I was doing a little bit of research on Steve Rose, that he was on DAZN. I didn't know that. Did any of you guys know that? He was fighting Leather Woods, I believe his last name was, and I sat there and I scratched my head. I was like, oh, okay. Well, he could fight in the inside a little bit. He's not that bad, but he doesn't have a jab, doesn't move very well. So that just told me, well, this is the reason why they picked the guy. You don't have to cut the ring off. You don't have to counterpunch the guy. You could actually trade with the man, and if you get there first, you're more likely to take him out. And that's exactly what we saw, Gabriel.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really understand why this fight was happening. But I guess, Golovkin needed some rust remover after being off for almost a year, for 9 months. He took a bunch of time off, while in the meantime, Canelo Alvarez continued to build his brand. He got to DAZN first, picked up a title, however you feel about that title, versus Rocky Fielding. Spectacular fashion, moving into another division, and back down to defend against Danny Jacobs, who held the WBA version, another version of the WBA title that Canelo Alvarez had. He cleaned up that middleweight business, as I think the middleweight champion. That's you got to face your mandatories, but then you also have to unify, especially in this era where you've got the WBA kind of trying to have it both ways. They realize, and this is not based on any reporting. I'm just watching what they're doing. You've got the PBC universe, you've got the ESPN universe, PBC being Fox Showtime universe. And then you've got, the ESPN Top Rank universe, and then you've got Golden Boy on DAZN. Now, sometimes when it's advantageous, one of those entities moves into the other. Like, what we saw with basically the hostile takeover of the heavyweight division by the PBC, by having Andy Ruiz, who's an Al Heyman fighter, come on DAZN and upset the apple cart, and Anthony Joshua knocking him down 4 times, taking his title. If he can do it twice, now the PBC has Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz holding down the entire division. That's the flagship division in all of boxing. This wasn't going to be that night. And what was interesting is listening to the broadcasters, I really like Brian Kenny. I like Chris Mannix's work, but I got to be honest. I feel like, and I think Sergio Mora, I would take him over Paulie Malignaggi as a color analyst, just every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Not an annoying voice, has good things to say, lets you know that he was a fighter and a champion, but not in an arrogant sort of way. But I would take him out of this mix. But I think Brian and Chris, man, they're just selling you the fight so hard, And I know I'm not looking at blow-by-blow analysis or analysts for my actual boxing coverage, but it's an interesting thing, and it's just something I'll put on the table for the rest of the show for people to discuss if they want. Just how many writers have been kind of swooped up by the ESPN, by DAZN, and by the PBC universe, and how they're kind of moving back and forth. And it's like you're working for the sport that you're covering. I guess the NFL and MLB have all kind of trained us for this, with the amount of coverage of the amount of games that they have on TV. So they need a bunch of people to cover it and a bunch of people that are color analysts. So you've seen that move the whole thing, and we've seen reporters do it. But it's strange to see it happening kind of in tandem. Like Larry Merchant wasn't a beat reporter, I don't believe, in at least certainly in the later stage of his career when he was working for HBO. He was just working for HBO. What we've got here is guys that are working for publications and then also working for the entity that's putting on the fight. I just find that to be a very strange thing. But back to Triple G, I thought he looked fine for being off for 9 months. He's got a new trainer, got him to move his upper body, got him to move his waist, remember his defense. I didn't think he got hit all that much. He got hit a few times, but, he wasn't Pernell Whitaker. He's known for knocking people out, not for his defense. So his style, he's going to take some punches, but he wasn't even taking the customary Chavez Sr. 3 punches to take 1.
No, he wasn't. Yeah.
Not really. I just thought the dude was falling in a bit. Steve Rolls, like you said, he didn't move very well. He had a jab, doesn't really use it all that often. And, he's a guy that came to the sport late. I mean, what was annoying was how much they were, and I guess, when you need those subscriptions and you're a new entity, particularly, these stores, you got to use everything at your disposal. And so all through the fight, we kept hearing Steve Rolls, Andy Ruiz last week, he shocked the world. Nobody picked him, but it's like completely taking things out of context. I mean, nobody had heard of Steve Rolls. Everybody thought that Joseph Parker lost to Steve Rolls or to Andy Ruiz and that he should have had a title. Everybody knew who he was before that. While he wasn't picked, I don't think there was anybody that thought that Andy would get blown over. I didn't think he would. I thought he'd get stopped later, but I thought he would be a problem for Anthony Joshua throughout. Nobody feels that way about Steve Rolls. There was nothing to suggest that he was going to get the knockout. This is kind of what Triple G does, right? He picks a guy with not a lot of knockouts, 19 wins, now 1 loss, 10 KOs. He started, he turned pro at 27? He's 35 years old. He turned pro in 2011. He had a good amateur career, but kind of turned pro late. This Triple G, Parker Rosen, not a big puncher, not even proven at 160, had been off for quite a long time when Triple G decided to face him. Danny Jacobs, Saul Alvarez, those are good punchers, although Saul's not looking like a one-hitter quitter at 160. He did it to, fielding at 168, but, I kind of wonder if that's an anomaly. Dominic Wade was a mandatory, but also a guy that, we're probably never going to hear about. 20 wins, 14 KOs coming into that fight. Now he's got the 1 loss and, not a lot going on afterwards. He's got a couple fights, but he took, 3 years off after that. Barely started fighting this year again against no hopers. It's like somebody said, I think it was Juan from San Diego reached out on Twitter and said, this is why I don't go with the eye test, quote unquote. Trust your eyes. This guy's great. I heard that about Felix Verdejo. We heard that about Panchito Bajado. This is the best prospect I've ever seen. And that career, and you don't know what a guy's like when he's facing equal opposition that gives him professional resistance. Steve Rolls wasn't going to give that. This was just a show. And off of this, and 9 months off, in the meantime, Canelo has picked up 2 belts, or cleaned up a WBA belt, picked up a belt in another division. Triple G was off for a year, calling himself the People's Champion, and kind of turning into heel Triple G, I guess. Why does that fight need to be next? Because they're both signed to DAZN and everybody has no imagination. It seems to me that there's another guy on DAZN named Demetrius Andrade, and he's basically the hot potato of the 160-pound division. Nobody wants to face him. All of a sudden, having a title belt and being on the same network as 2 other champions in his division, now there's no reason to face him? I don't understand. Danny Jacobs
he's not deserving. Is the term now that I'm hearing a lot. He's not deserving of fighting Triple G.
Which is strange because you know who his number 1 contender is, his mandatory? Triple G. So It doesn't. I mean, you look at the middleweight division right now, and this is what I was getting at earlier. I kind of got off the rails there with my talk about media, but they're not pointing this out, and it makes you kind of wonder why. Look at the middleweight division. You've got Saul Alvarez and Jamal Charlo, and Charlo shared that WBC belt with Golovkin for quite some time. I think that fight was even ordered and then ignored, but now Golovkin is the number one contender. But Jamal Charlo has a version of the WBC belt along with Saul Canelo Alvarez, who is the lineal middleweight champion above all of this. Now, Saul has the WBA belt and the IBF belt, but suddenly Rob Brandt was in the mix. Remember it was Danny Jacobs that had the IBF belts, rather.
Right.
But Saul Alvarez and now Rob Brandt has this WBA belt. They've got to clear that up. I don't really understand what it is they're doing, except to say that maybe the WBC and the WBA realize that the networks, these guys are probably never going to fight each other the way networks and the promotional battles are. So they're creating belts in a division so that they can get paid twice by both factions. Why does Rob Brandt have the WBA title? I mean, he picked it up from Ryota Murata. We know that, but why did he have it? Why are there two belts in both those sanctioning bodies? It makes no sense. But, the IBF, Derevyanchenko is there as the number one contender. That guy's been waiting for his shot for a while. And Demetrius Andrade is there, at the WBO. It just doesn't make sense to not fight that guy soon. It just, as a storyline, I get it. We've seen them twice. Everyone is like, this is the rivalry. Why is Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin 3 the only fight that makes any sense? Because it's the most money? But we've already made money on that fight twice. Demetrius Andrade, 27-0, 17 KOs. He picked up the vacant belt, against Kadandakwa back in October of 2018. Defended it against Artur Akavov. He's about to defend it against Masil Sulecki. Once that fight's done at the end of the month, it's kind of open season for the middleweight. It just seems like unification should be on the menu.
Well, I get the whole sense of this is even if there was an immediate rubber match, which I see guys are like, we want, Triple G he deserves a rematch, which makes no sense because they already fought twice. But I just get the sense that they had a rubber match immediately, and a lot of folks are picking Canelo to win this third fight, because of how he looked in the second in the rematch and how he looked against Danny Jacobs, versus how Gennady Golovkin looked against Rose, right?
Right.
And so I just get this whole sense that even if a rubber match happens immediately, and the Gennady Golovkin fans don't get that satisfaction that they're kind of yearning for, the way Marquez was yearning for against Pacquiao, they're not going to be happy. They're going to ask for a fourth and fifth fight until they get what they believe their man deserves. That to me seems more of a journey that they're on, rather than really looking at the landscape of the middleweight division, of that the fact that there can be some really great matches, made. And I also find it real weird when I hear guys go, well, titles don't really matter, and DAZN's a subscription based, and da da da. Well, guys, I mean HBO is subscription based. Didn't we subscribe to that because of title fights? How is it that all of a sudden we don't believe in title fights anymore? How is it that marketing a title fight is no longer in existence because these two guys fought? And because these two guys fought, that a unification fight wouldn't sell more to a casual fan.
It makes no sense.
That makes no sense to me. Now, granted that I would love to see the rubber match. I was with everybody else saying, man, if that fight happened, I was like, I'd like to see that fight happen. I think it'd be a great fight again. I understand that some folks are looking for closure, but to say that titles don't matter, or that this is such a money fight they need subscription. Well, we're talking about casual fans, because the zone's getting the hardcore fan. They're bringing them in. So I thought networks.
If titles didn't matter
titles.
to a subscription service, World Championship Boxing on HBO wouldn't be a thing. And HBO Boxing After Dark wouldn't have been created, which was basically a pathway from the Prospectville, Contenderville, or the Crossroads bout at the end of a career, and then propelling you back into World Championship Boxing Series.
What sounds better to you? Let me ask you this. Let me ask anybody you want to call in 347-215-7598. Join us. Let me know what you think. But what sounds better as a marketing pitch? Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo, the rubber match. Triple G wants revenge. Or Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo, a unified championship fight plus revenge. Which one sells better?
Right. I mean, once for all the marbles. I mean, this is what I don't get. It's like if the belts didn't matter, then Danny Jacobs and Canelo wouldn't have fought. I mean, it's a tough matchup. Danny brought a lot to the table and experience, arguably beat Triple G. None of that mattered. It was the belts. And Canelo already had a belt. He already was the lineal champion. He had the WBA belt, the WBC belt. Why did he need another one? Because unification matters. It matters. Like, why are we all excited about the World Boxing Super Series? Because those are leading to unification matches. The best fighting the best, right? I mean, that's. Yep. I've been hearing this. It's I've been watching boxing my whole life. I'm 46. I'll just put 40 years on it. It may have been younger than that when I saw my first boxing match. I remember watching Ali on ABC Wide World of Sports as a kid. It seems to me that these trends kind of happen where there's a guy that is around so long and we know his name so well that we get sold that he doesn't need the belt anymore. Barrera was that guy for a minute. He stopped wanting to be dictated by the sanctioning bodies, wanted to take those big money fights towards the end of his career. Totally understandable. But Triple G hasn't shown that on pay-per-view that he's a big draw on his own. He needs other people. There's a reason why he's
numbers for Rose.
I don't know what his numbers were for Rolls, but I imagine they weren't what Canelo's were. But I could be wrong. If somebody could hit me with that, that'd be great. But it just seems to me that for some reason, I guess it's just Triple G fans, they're treating him like he's the pay-per-view draw, like he's the guy that has the resume that Canelo does, and he isn't that guy. What's annoying is like being logical and breaking down a career and seeing it for what it is being called a hater these days. I was talking about Triple G long before any of these folks were. I was talking about Triple G back when the next round was a half-hour webcast that you could only see if you're a subscriber to Max Boxing. That's how long it's been I've been talking about this guy. Don't tell me that I'm a Triple G hater. Yeah, we had Abel on the show.
Abel and Golovkin on the show.
And I've been critical of Gennady, and Abel still talks to me. He's able to handle it. But you look at that resume, and it's like there's, Lemieux, Stevens, Kasim Uma, and then, Jacobs and Canelo. Those are the best fights. There's, I guess you could look at Gil or Macklin. But I mean, are those really the greatest wins in the world? I don't mean to just sit there and trash a guy's whole career, but it's like I'm being sold this bill of goods, and then I'm supposed to defer to this person, and I keep being sold well, this is happening for this reason. You telling me that you couldn't beat Derevyanchenko? That was too much of a risk. And why is it? Why is Canelo the only guy in the division? He didn't want to risk anything. That rematch with Canelo by fighting Derevyanchenko. So we pulled Vadas Martirosyan up a division out of mothballs and beat him down and then said, I respect boxing and we're champions.
It's that whole,
I'm supposed to be excited about that.
Right. It's the whole Stephen A. Smith syndrome. If there's an upset, you no longer want to see that guy because it's not that good of a fight anymore. And I get that, where Gennady Golovkin's fans fear that if he loses to Demetrius or he loses to Danny Jacobs in a rematch, that he's never going to get the Canelo fight. Let me make this. I was talking to you when you were tweeting to all the folks. You were going back and forth, and I was working my ass off in the sun over 104 degrees. And you were calling me. We were calling back each other back and forth, and I was telling you, I was like, Marquez he was obsessed in fighting Pacquiao. But in between that, he went off and fought Casillas. He went and fought out Juan the Baby Bull Diaz. He went and fought all these other guys and had some good wins and had some losses in between them. And he sat and he waited patiently. And he did exactly what a fighter's supposed to do, which is if you're going to play chess in the business, you corner your guy that they finally have to say, well, shit, I got to fight this guy because, I've been waiting for Floyd Mayweather and it's not going to happen. So the best next option is for me to fight Marquez because the bastard doesn't want to go away. If I'm Gennady Golovkin and I'm his fans, I'm like, hey, fight all the guys that are available. So Canelo is basically forced to now face you. If you hounded Danny Jacobs, who lost on the decision against Canelo, and said, hey, you know what? Remember, Triple G said he didn't look. What did he say? What was it? He didn't look motivated or some shit like that, right? It was a boring fight, and
it was passionless, and
it was right. Immediately after that, if I was his PR guy, I would have said, hey, ask for I'll fight Danny Jacobs. I'm gonna knock him out. I'm gonna show you why I'm the better guy. And then go from there. If Canelo's talking about go get a bout, then I would have said, okay, then I'll fight Demetrius Andre because you don't want to fight him. You're scared of fighting him. So I'm going to go face this guy because this guy's athletic. This guy's going to give anybody in division trouble.
Look at who Marquez fights after, 2004 May is when they first fought to that disputed draw.
Right.
Marquez comes back with Orlando Salido in September of that year. He fights Victor Polo the following May. The ill-advised fight against Chris John. Is in March of 2006. He comes back with Turdzak Jandang, still one of my favorite names in boxing. Then Jim Rex Jaka. 2007, he kicks off in March. Marco Antonio Barrera. Then Rocky Juarez in November of that year. Then he finally gets that Pacquiao rematch 4 years later against, in March of 2008. Loses that one, another disputed fight. Excellent fight. I was there live. He doesn't come back with a Steve Rolls. He comes back in September against Joel Casamayor and stops him. And he comes back.
Great fight,
following February, he fights Juan Diaz for 3 belts. One of them vacant because belts matter. And then he surprises everybody. That following September, moves up to welterweight and fights Floyd freaking Mayweather Jr. Then he rematches Juan Diaz and Michael Katsiras. Licar Ramos, which is his first fight with Memo. And then he gets Manny Pacquiao again. Gets robbed. Fights Fedchenko in April. Then comes back and finally gets that KO against Manny Pacquiao. There's a lot of activity. And there's a lot of high-level opponents in there. There's very few gimmies in there. Very few like our Ramoses. So when you say, why does Triple G need to do this or that? Why doesn't he? What makes his resume so special? What is so special about his numbers that he doesn't need to do anything but dictate to the number one star in the sport? That makes no sense to me. None whatsoever. And now people want to get rid of the belts and all that stuff. They want to move everything around for this guy. They want to move. He was the one talking about all the belts. And Abel Sanchez was on this show saying, we don't care if we fight him in the ring for the belt, we just want the belt. And then Canelo got rid of the belt. Triple G got the belt. They still wanted the fight because they want the money, because they're just like every other fighter. They want the money.
Actually, it was Cotto that had the belt, remember, at the time, and he said,
well, it was Cotto,
yeah, they were on the show, and Abel Sanchez said to us, we don't care who has the belt. We don't even. It's not about fighting Cotto. We just want the belts. We want all the belts. That's it. I get it, guys. I get it. The Gennady Golovkin fans are frustrated. Just like the way Sergey Kovalev, when Sergey Kovalev fought Andre Ward, I thought Kovalev won. Even with Triple G fighting Canelo the first time, I thought he won. But I go back to, a nationalist fan are the worst. You're not watching the beauty of the sport. You're just watching because you want to see your guy win, and you're not accepting that boxing is not always about winning. Boxing is about how you come back. How do you break through barriers? When I hear guys go, he's the most avoided guy. He's had such a tough time, in boxing. No, like no other champ. I'm like, more than Hagler? How about Martinez?
Seriously?
Who's 150? Who's 154 and was having no luck because nobody wanted to see him. Not even HBO wanted the guy. He had to go to 160 as an opponent to fight Kelly Pavlik. And when he wins the title, guess what? They still were trying to set the guy up to lose.
Yeah, he still had to do catch weights. They don't even compare in terms of how hard they had it. He was doing it against all odds. HBO wasn't picking him. Yeah, Hagler didn't even get his first title shot until in his 52nd something fight. I want to say it was his 52nd. I could be wrong, but he was 49-2-2 in that fight with Alan Minter. So you're telling me that Triple G's had it rougher? Come on, dude. They just Triple G fans are just a irrational group of people. They really are.
I was telling a guy today, we were, at one of my lots we were talking about, and I had asked him, so you want to see the rubber match right away? And he's like, no, not really. I don't care, man. I want to see what both guys would do with somebody else. But if it happens, it happens. And that's a logical fan right there. I'm like that. If the fight happens, of course I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to bitch and moan about it.
Watch it.
Yeah, right. And then shit, I already lost my. What
I think that I'll just jump in since you forgot and you made me forget earlier. That's the thing. I think I'm not against the trilogy. I'm like, from a marketing standpoint, why next? Like you said earlier, it's like if undisputed middleweight championship of the world, all the marbles and revenge is better than just. Well, Triple G thought he won that first fight and thought he won the second fight, and they're not even that great of fights, Dave. I had people trying to convince me how good it was, and I was like, okay, specifically,
they were good, but they weren't great.
What moment do you remember from the first or second fight? Which moment?
Well, the first one wasn't memorable. I think the second one was more memorable. I like the fact that
there was a big right hand landed in the first one, and people were very excited about it.
Right.
In the second fight.
I like the way
moment?
Pacific moment is just not Pacific moment. I just like
that's what I'm saying.
The
fights are moments.
Right.
But fights are moments, right? You can't point to a specific round in either fight and go round of the year candidate. There wasn't one. It wasn't fight of the year.
There was no Andy Ruiz AJ moment in the third round. You know what I mean? There was nothing like that.
The only reason they did the second one is because the judging in the first one was so shitty and they made money, so they did it again. But I mean,
this was my what I was gonna say. Talking to that fight fan was because he had asked me, he's like, so what do you think, man? You think he looks old? Do you think that a rubber match would even matter? I mean, you don't think you'd get blown out? And I said, I can't really tell you. There was nothing there about Rose that can tell me anything, to tell you the truth.
No.
It's some kind of a mirage when promoters and networks do that. I mean, a tune-up fight. I mean, this is the baddest guy on the planet on the middleweight division. Why is he getting such soft tune-up fights like this? If I remember correctly, when the fight was announced, a lot of Triple G's jumped off the wagon because of that reason. But then he knocks the guy out, which I had made a joke about it because I rolled up to that lot and going, Triple G's back. And everybody started laughing, because we knew that was going to happen. Going to knock out the guy, and then it's going to go back to he's back. He's going to do it again.
Well, I mean, not to get too big picture, but we're a capitalist society. We're inundated with advertising all the time. And I've noticed that people get like, well, they'll either hold a promoter to what they'll like if it's De La Hoya or like Eddie Hearn, if they're doing their job and promoting a fight and building it up bigger than it is, everybody's like, these lying sacks of shit. But if a fighter does it, like Triple G, well, it's just promotion, bro. It's just marketing. Mexican style. Relax about that. It's just marketing. He's just trying to find his demographic. Floyd saying it's going to be a knockdown, toe-to-toe contest, and I'm going to knock him out. It's just marketing when he always does the opposite. People are kind of used to, in a capitalist, advertising-controlled world, they're used to being lied to, and I guess depending on how they feel about the fighter, they're either okay with it or they're not okay with it. With Triple G, what was annoying to me was being sold it by writers and fans. He's a different type of fighter. He's not about the money. He's incredibly loyal.
I remember that.
And, like, all these things have not really turned out to be that true. I mean, he's loyal to Tom Loeffler. Tom Loeffler's still there, but ask Abel Sanchez how he feels about it. And apparently Abel got shit-talked to him last night on Twitter from that account, which got it suspended, something about Mexican style. Still don't know what it is, and if anybody has screenshots, please hit us up.
I'd like to know what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I really would too. But
That's a good boy.
Yeah, he's
which
bad
I don't have
boy,
a problem with. I don't honestly. You know what? Here's the thing. I don't hold fighters.
He's Gennady
under the
DIY
fire.
Golovkin.
Right. I don't hold fighters to this whole persona that's being built. If anything, that turns me off. Yeah. Like when I said about Wilder, acting like a thug. Like, dude, we know you're not. Like, you're trying too hard. I don't want to be sold a WWE character. If I want a script sold to me and a character, dude, I'd be a Star Wars fan or a WWE fan. But I'm not. I'm not one of those. I like the realism for me comes through the interpretation of fighting in the ring. That's real for me. Everything else doesn't really even matter. The only guys that I would literally used to like to sit and listen to is, as if you followed me for years, you know I'm a Salvador Sanchez fan. I'm a huge Salvador Sanchez fan. I can watch the guy's fights over and over, and every single time the guy fights, I can see and find something new. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Guys like even like yourself told me, Gabriel, you're like, wasn't that exciting? Not to you, but to me, he was. I liked the finesse that he brought, and I liked how he changed. He evolved because of what the
Who's
system
the first
was doing.
guy I knew who would switch back and forth,
Right.
Well, it's not just my opinion that he was boring. It was Top Rank's
Oh, no, I
opinion.
didn't say it was.
But I was telling you about. Yeah, that he was known as a grinder, and his fights were. Bernard Hopkins was kind of a grinder at times and kind of not that fun to watch. Doesn't mean they weren't skilled. And you sit and watch Marvin Hagler's career, you're going to learn some things. But that was always what was exciting to me about him. He was the first guy that I saw go from right-handed to southpaw and back again. Depending on what he wanted, what he needed to do.
Yeah, I think B. Hopper was as close as what Marvin was in the beginning of his career. He was fighting for respect, and then when he got it, he became very corporal. Where Hagler, after his fight with Sugar Ray Leonard, he was like, I'm done with the politics of the sport. I'm out. I'm leaving to Italy. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to wait around. And you know what? I always respected that about him. I know a lot of fans were like, why would you walk away from the most lucrative rematch that could have happened in middleweight division at the time? But I respected that he was a man and he stood his ground. He stood what he believed in, and that to me is very it's a treasure for me, in my opinion, for you to stand and stick to your morals. Where I've seen like Bernard was a guy that would talk about the system and how the suits are ruining the sport. But as soon as he got on that tie, he was the guy. He was the problem. He was the George Lucas of filmmakers. George Lucas. I remember George Lucas from Modesto. I was reading about him the other day. How he used to talk about how the investors and the guys with the money ruined filmmaking because they were the ones that were able to make the decisions. But then as soon as he was the guy after Star Wars, he became the guy. It turned out to be he started ruining it. That's to me, if you want to sum up Bernard Hopkins' career, that's how it ended up, in my opinion. I don't know why we're going, but anyways, we're way off subject here on that. But
well, Well, I think though, was it Marvin Hagler that said, it's hard to get up and do your running, in silk sheets. And I think he was speaking of Sugar Ray Leonard, but
Yeah,
I didn't see that with Triple G. I mean, I think he's a guy battening it down of his career, much able talked or whatever. Likes Jonathan Banks is a lot more low key. I think Banks got him to do some new things, or at least remember to do some old things. If you watch Triple G amateur stuff, he moved his upper body a little bit more, was a little more mobile with his legs. What I liked was that he was remembering to do that, but it was in spots. You could see it's beginning. It's not complete yet what they're trying to do together. So I think, he looked fine to me. I didn't see an older guy. It is interesting that people are already saying, like, oh, I've heard that from a few people. Like, he's waiting him out. And I'm like, Canelo's already fought him twice. So, I mean, maybe he is waiting him out, but I mean, too freaking bad. That's just the way it goes. Your guy didn't do enough to win the fight. He doesn't get to dictate. That's boxing. Go do something to put you in the driver's seat.
Here's my point of view of this, okay? If I'm Team Canelo, if I'm in that team, and my mission is to solely make my fighter believe that your career revolves around Gennady Golovkin, like winning over the fans, then that guy ends up now just solely being prepared for Gennady Golovkin. That when he decides to venture off and fight anybody else, guess what? He's not going to be able to do anything because now he's got muscle memory only for Triple G. I like what the Reynoso and them are doing. I like that Canelo and them are saying, like, dude, we're not going to just stick and wait for this one guy every single time. We're going to do other things. We're going to, test the waters at 168. We're going to fight other guys. I'm going to go after Danny Jacobs, who's considered the second best middleweight and also had a strap. That's what we're going to do. If you're a trainer, that's what you want your guy to do. I don't know what Banks is telling Gennady Golovkin because, I think that at this point of pinnacle of Golovkin's career, he's the, the driver in the seat. But if I'm on that part of the team, I would start looking for other options and not for my fighter to be obsessed with one style, one guy. Because then you become stale. Now you're only focused on fighting a style that you believe that you either beat or you didn't. It's a tricky game. There's only so much, time frame you have in your career. So why be haunted and obsessed with one particular fighter? Why not continue the mission that you had in the beginning, which is all the belts?
That's what I don't understand is why everybody wants to drop that storyline. Now that it's, like Sergio Martinez had his belt. His thing was, he wanted Pacquiao, although he eventually said that guy's too small. But I definitely want, to fight Mayweather. He kind of got a little obsessed with that. Then Chavez Jr. stole his belt with help from Top Rank and HBO. And so his mission had to change, and he wanted to regain that title. He was still the middleweight champion. It's, like his mission changed, but it kind of stayed the same. And it became what it became. Like sometimes the belt and the campaign kind of reveal itself and dictate itself to you. Golovkin had a very clear mission, almost had all the belts, had an elusive guy in Billy Joe Saunders, who's elusive in and out of the ring, that they couldn't eventually get there. And now Andrade has that belt, another elusive guy, the tallest middleweight, and he's a southpaw. He can punch, he can box quite well. His defense is very good. I want to see that fight. The mission should still be all the belts. I mean, if I'm DAZN, I picked that up. Was your campaign. You still have a chance. Like, there's a chance to get it all in one fell swoop. Or, he beats Canelo. Well, what happens if he beats Canelo? Now they're a draw, and then they're 1-1. So then we got to do 4. Those are the only fights we get to see these guys do. We have to do that fight immediately because Triple G's getting old. You know what I mean? I don't think he wins
Day,
that.
buddy. Don't have to change their name to Groundhog app.
Somebody needs to fight Andrade. And I misspoke earlier because Danny had the WBA belt and was sharing it with I believe Triple G. They cleared that up. Danny picked up the IBF belt, and Canelo scooped that belt up in unification, the way that Triple G did with Lemieux to get that IBF belt. So, it just here's the thing that's overarching all of this. How hard is it to keep all freaking 4 of those belts? And how rare is it that the guy that has those belts is also like the lineal champion? So, I think that's more sooner rather than later. Scoop them all up in one house. And then let them get broken up the way they always do after somebody's
Well, you're
unified.
thinking like a marketing guy, Me as a fight fan,
I'm thinking it was a fight fan. I want to see an undisputed champion. I do
too. Yeah, and I think that's what every argument that I've ever seen in forums and even on Twitter is like, why are not guys trying to unify a division? Now it's changed. Now the line has moved for one guy. Anyways, fight fans, we're going to continue talking. I want to definitely talk about Dorquito versus Andrew Tabides that's happening this Saturday. It's a great fight that's going to be coming up. Fury versus Schwarz. We talked about this when it was announced. I actually broke down Tom Schwartz's record and told you the quirkiness of the guy, similarities that he has to Fury, and you kind of saw it in their standing face-to-face photo op. And then we'll get to some of the questions that were asked for us to answer here on Leave It in the Ring. But let's touch in really quick. Some fight fans here, man.
I'm just looking at the Twitter feed as well just to make sure we got any questions. And Bibliophile Bradley, what is it? Free roll for life.
Right?
Me being lazy. I'll just listen to the podcast tomorrow. Me being a winner. It's Bill O'Reilly going, fuck it, we'll do it live. Somebody yelled that during Tech Week of my last show. I fell out. Let's go to the phone lines here. We'll do it live. 510, you're live on Leave It in the Ring.
Hey, Gabe. Hey, Dave. Fernando here, Richmond. How you guys doing?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm glad the heat's over. I was about to pass out, man. Jesus Christ.
Shit. Yesterday was bad, man. That was bad, bro.
And, I skipped the heat wave because I was on vacation near Death Valley. So it wasn't exactly cold over there either.
I thought you were going to say
not a good move on my part.
Washington
but,
or something. I skipped the heat wave and went to Washington.
Yeah.
Death Valley.
Yeah, no, I was in the middle of the desert at the sports bar at the end of the universe. It was pretty great.
Facing death.
Yeah, I was. What's on your mind, Fernando?
I feel so bad. Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
Like the same thing that you were talking about. Like with some of the people on Twitter, man, and like the fans like myself, right? They're gonna run into a bunch of biased ones or whatever, right? Like that's normal, But the people that I'm more disappointed in are the people that call themselves boxing journalists, right? They're like kind of always carrying the water for Triple G, man. They're always carrying the water for him, man. They're always like pushing whatever agenda he has. They push it, man. Mexican
crazy,
style, all the belts. Canelo needs to fight him next. And I hate to point out one person in particular, but I'll use Steve Kim for an example, right? Before the Canelo fight, he was talking about how he's a young 34. Canelo is avoiding him, right? Like all these things, the Mexican style, he was on it, man, And then afterwards, man, after the Canelo fights, they're like, oh, well, he is getting old, and blah, blah, blah. Like they always have an excuse for him, dude. Like they always have an excuse for him. It's just interesting. Like I'm like you, Gabe. I'm 44, man. Like, and I've been watching boxing since I was a little kid, basically, man. And it goes even farther back than that. My uncle's been watching boxing forever. Our family, right? Like this sport to me goes to the roots, man. Like we've been big fans. Like I can hear my uncle talking about watching Bobby Chacon fights, Chucho Castillo, all these guys that I didn't get to see because they're kind of before my time, right? So I've always loved boxing, and I've always been kind of like colorblind with boxing too, man. Like I go for a Mexican guy, right? But at the same time, man, I've some of my favorite fighters come in every color, every shape, and I don't really like. I try to be right is right, like neutral kind of almost, right? Even with Canelo, I wasn't a fan of his initially, in fact, I was probably a bigger fan of Triple G initially than I was with Canelo,
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Like I remember me and my uncle were talking like, because this is how Triple G really came to exist, man, because for a while there, like there wasn't like a top Mexican fighter, man. It was kind of in between Chavez Jr. and Canelo. Like who was going to be the main guy, the main guy for the Mexicans, right? That's a big title. That's a lot of money comes with it, man. If you're the main Mexican dude, you're really valuable, man. You're really valuable.
We did a segment. I don't know how far back you go in listening to us, but we did a segment here on Leaving the Ring, Gabriel. Remember this, where we had said that if Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Canelo Alvarez are the future of Mexican boxing, we're doomed. Because they were a marketing mule. That's all they were. They hadn't proven anything. When we had Canelo on Leaving the Ring, when he was campaigning at 154, but he was making guys jump up, he hung up on us because we were asking him really tough questions. Well, not really tough questions, just questions that every fight fan had in their mind was like, when are you going to stop fighting catchweights, dude? So when I hear,
I remember actually you he kind of hung up on you, Dave. You kept
that's true.
You kept asking him, what do you think
Gabriel.
is a?
That we were a team.
This guy, he's a norteño. I don't know,
That's on you.
Homeboy threw me under the bus real quick, bro. He's like,
look, I was just born in San Jose. I didn't grow up there.
Hey, you did exactly. We got pulled over by the cops. You throw the weed in my lap. He owns the officer.
I'm just a hitchhiker, bro. I'm just messing with you. No, but I remember specifically Dave was like, what did you keep asking him? What do you think a champion's responsibility is?
Right.
That was the question. And he tried to answer, no, but what is a champion's responsibility? There? Yeah.
Hello?
That was,
yeah.
Yeah, but, we're back to that central question. What is a champion's responsibility? And I think he's fulfilling it at this point.
Yes, I think so too.
The most avoided guy in the division, he fought him twice. I'd like to see a third fight, but there are other fights I'd like to see. I mean, think about all the fights that, I just mentioned for Juan Manuel Marquez that we got because they didn't just go back to back to back to back and just knock that trilogy out super fast. I mean, Gotti Ward is kind of an anomaly when it comes to, rematches or like trilogies that they just went back to back, but they were also at the end of their careers. This was the best option for both of them. Both these guys have other options. I don't understand why you don't want to see him in different matchups. It's the same affliction for Floyd fans. I was like, why don't you want to see him against these guys? There's always these arguments to not face the best when that's all we want is to see the best fight the best. Anything else on your mind, Fernando?
Well, I just think with Triple G, right? There's a lot of boxing media fans too, right? They're kind of like boxing hipsters, right? And boxing hipsters, they want to be the first one on every corner, man. Like right now, everybody wants to be the boxing hipsters, right? They want to be the first one on the Usyk corner, right? A lot of them are already trumpeting him as one of the top heavyweights already. He hasn't even fought a heavyweight, I have the Athletic, right? And they signed some boxing writers. They signed Mike Coppinger, Ray Bartholomew, and Lance Pugmire.
Right.
And I was reading the first article they put out about the heavyweights, right? And they had little blurbs on each of them, dude. And one of the blurbs, man, they had Usyk as number 2 in the heavyweight division. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Based on never fighting there, he's number 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it happens. It's a natural thing. I did it with Triple G, right? I was one of the few people that bought that pay-per-view against Lemieux, right? And I was trumpeting to my friends and to my family, hey, this guy's badass, man. You got to watch him. And they would tell me, who's he fought? And I'd be like, well, he's not fought everybody, man. He's badass, man. It's going to be a good fight, And little by little, that kind of wore off on me too, man. I was like, it wore off for me, man. It really did, man. Hey, this guy is bullshit, I mean, he's not bullshit. I don't want to go that far. That's too strong. But he's not quite what he's been made out to be. The whole Mexican style was bullshit. The hashtag all the belts, that's bullshit, right? And none of these guys want to call him out for it, man. There's not even a mild criticism coming from the boxing media. You expect the fans not to criticize them, right? Because, they're fanboys, right? It's human nature. But I expect a little bit more of the boxing media, to kind of hold everybody to a certain standard, man. To be fair with everybody, man.
It's a very everybody's. All I could say about boxing media is that we got to stop calling them journalists. First off, they're not. We know.
there's
they're
very
not
few
journalists. Yeah, they're very few.
There are very
few.
some of them are like Doug Fisher has a degree in journalism.
Right.
Those are his credentials. That's the foundation of his work. And having dealt with him as an editor, I mean, the guy is a deep guy. Pugmire is a real journalist. I think even Mike Coppinger went to school for it. I could be wrong. But I thought, like, I don't subscribe to The Athletic. I think people, if they want to support news that way, I think that's great.
Right.
There's news agencies I do support with a subscription. That's not sports isn't the information that that those three people could probably provide is going to be provided by other people. I'm not that excited about. I've heard such and such fight is about to happen. To me, that's not even really news. And to even pretend that would make you an enemy in the industry or somebody to be avoided is kind of ridiculous. I've just finished reading a book called Strong Boy, which is about the life and times of John L. Sullivan. And they talked about how, he's the first sports superstar in history, in American history, particularly because of, the railroad. He was able to kind of, barnstorm the United States and, fight in, every small town, total mismatches, whatever. He would take them on, and it was like a gimmick. I can lick any son of a bitch in the world, that whole thing. But what followed that was a new kind of person, and they called it he was the sport. It was generally a guy. It's funny, something that's gone away. They're generally a very good dresser. They're kind of dandies, but they knew about the horse races. They knew about the fights. They knew about baseball. They were the sport, the guy that, sources have told me such and such. They were the guy that, knew about the betting and had information that maybe could sway it. And that's kind of, I think, boxing writers in particular, although, blogging and the internet, has made this happen in every other sport. But I feel like boxing was first because we got cut from newspapers first. And that person, the sports fan, has become the boxing writer for the most part. Maybe not all of them are as sharp, but yeah, the idea, the way everything is kind of blended. Like I read Mike's introduction, or I read all of their introductions, and I found it most Mike about how I guess now he feels fine that he's happy that this is truly independent journalism. They're not, they're it's subscriber based. They're not beholden to a promoter. But Mike benefited by working for the USA Today. He got full-time work there when the PBC first started advertising in that paper. Advertising is what makes everything go. And when that advertising basically went away, so did Mike's job. Then he went to the Ring, which is owned by Oscar De La Hoya. Now, I've taken paychecks from Ring as well, but I don't know, just don't preach to me about that stuff if that's kind of your background. And then on top of it, you're hosting shows on Fox, but I mean, you're working for the PBC essentially. I don't see you hosting a bunch of other people on there besides PBC fighters. I could be wrong. I don't watch the show all the time.
I mean, I just sum it up as they're vloggers and bloggers themselves. Yeah, no, I don't think that. But I'm saying the majority of them, I know what you're talking about, Fernando. I mean, when you hear a guy, listen, when I hear certain media guys say that Demetrius Andrade doesn't deserve to fight Gennady Golovkin, even though he has a title, he needs to do more. You know what I hear? Is the guy saying the black guy's too athletic. The black guy's too elusive. He needs wear and tear before he can get in with our guy, because our guy's getting older and our guy doesn't, he shouldn't have to cut off the ring. He should be like more of a Steve Rose. That's what I hear, and that to me I don't hear being objective. I don't hear somebody really loving the sport. They're loving an individual. And I've always said this, nationalism and boxing are the worst. They are the worst. I hate a Mexican fan only rooting for the Mexican guy when even if the Mexican guy's no good, or a Puerto Rican only rooting for a Puerto Rican, or a white guy only rooting for a Ukrainian because he looks like him. I hate those kind of fans because they don't look at the full picture. They're not really enjoying the sport, which is pretty sad. You're missing everything that's happening in the sport right now. There's so many other fighters to love, and there's so many matches to be made that you should be asking for those fights to be made. But then you don't, because you only want to see one-sided fights, because you only want to see your guy win. So, that's where I stand about it, man.
Journalism
coming back.
is defined by George Orwell as printing something that people in power don't want you to. Everything else is public relations. And that's, to me, 90% of what boxing writers do is maybe even a higher percentage, is they're just an extension of the promotion. They do an interview before the fight. They do a fight report after the fight.
Right.
They do as many stories as they can or videos as they can, interviewing people connected to a fight. But rarely, even now, and maybe I'm to blame for shaming people for kind of appropriating my work. I've scared people away from covering PEDs. I've been accused of that, and maybe I'll take that on. But it just is weird to me that people don't push on the idea of is there drug testing for this fight?
Damn,
it just
you even threw
standard
yourself
question.
under the bus.
Yeah, I'm just throwing you under the bus.
I know, kind of day for you today.
A little thrown this week from my time in the sun. You do some psychedelics, you hang out, you think about things, and you really look inward, Dave. But I just think, people should cover the sport better because I want to transition. And I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts on this, Fernando. Cletus Selden versus Zab Judah, a fight I watched today. Cletus Selden has a history, 2 times. He's been caught by VADA with a TE ratio of, 21 to 1 and 20 to 1. He's also caught with stanozolol in his system. There's no legitimate reason to have that in your system. I don't think there was testing for this fight. And this fight was the main event at the International Boxing Hall of Fame's, inductions weekend. All these boxing writers, all these boxing people, fighters, industry folk sat and watched a 41-year-old Zab Judah take a beating from a guy that had been popped for having 20 times the amount of testosterone he's supposed to naturally in his body, twice, and stanozolol. How did this fight happen? What embarrassment. And Zab Judah ends up with a brain bleed for his troubles. Puts in a coma, then he's out, now he's been released. But, he'll never fight again, and he probably shouldn't have been fighting in the first place at 41.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts? To me, am I wrong to think that this is like a prime example, like a microcosm of what's wrong with journalism and boxing?
I think it's sad, man, but it goes back to the ref's instructions, right? Protect yourself at all times, including outside the ring, man. I don't know what Zab Judah is doing getting himself in the ring with somebody like that, right? At his age, Like, take me, for instance, right? If I get in a fight with some guy, and I know that dude's been dirty fighting other people before, I'm bringing him back. I'm bringing some backup, man, in case that guy trying to kick me while I'm down. You gotta know who you're fighting at all times, man. Protect yourself at all times, man. Zab Judah, at his age, shouldn't even gone in the ring. I'm not blaming. I hope I'm not sounding like I'm blaming Zab Judah, but that sounds like that guy's a fucking dirtbag, and he should have never signed a contract to even fight that guy, And that's a shame, man. I hope Zab Judah's okay, but that's a shame.
All of them.
That really is.
All of them are dirtbags. I mean, I was talking when Gabriel, when we talked about this, I told him off the air. I was like, shame on all the people that were involved in this fight, and now later tweeting, "Our prayers are with you, Zab." That's a little too late. First off, you shouldn't even. I didn't talk about it on Twitter. I didn't talk about it on the air. Nobody talked about it because we all knew Zab had no business being in the ring. You shouldn't have been in there. It's certain fighters can can extend their career a little different. Zab, we kind of saw where he was already headed to. I mean, I witnessed his last fight. Guy had no business being in there, but it shows you how savage boxing business folks are. They don't give a shit. Nobody at one moment stopped. Nobody at one moment stopped to think that, hey, this guy looked really shitty in his last fight. Well, why are we letting him fight again? And why are we letting him fight with a guy that's been known for juicing up? Nobody decided to stop and think about that. Until it's always... Isn't
New York one of the toughest commissions, supposedly? Like, they wouldn't even let Andy have a Snickers bar before the fight? So what are they doing? Like, where's the consistency, with that commission? Supposedly they're supposed to be...
Well, it's one of those, if you don't mention it, we won't mention it type of deals. It's always been like that with any commission. I can't just blame one commission, There's always different commissions. They have different rules and different laws, but you know what? If you don't catch it, you'll see. They don't mention it. Remember that, Gabriel?
This is, the Turning Stone resort and casino in Verona, New York. I believe it's on an Indian reservation, that casino.
Right.
So yeah, a whole other set of rules. There's,
Wow.
like I did that piece several years ago for the Boxing News in the UK, where I polled, where, drug testing, where are we now? And I polled all 76 emails, 76 different offices, executive directors, and athletic commissions on that are part of the Boxing Commission charter. I didn't get responses back from all of them, but what I learned was that they're not really beholden to anybody but themselves, and that there's not just these state commissions, but there's also Indian resort or Indian reservation casinos. They're sovereign nations, so they have their own set of rules. That's how this fight got. Zab has a name. It's Boxing Hall of Fame weekend, but nobody was looking out for him. I mean, he'd fought twice in the last 2 years against dudes that he got a TKO and a UD, but he fought once in 2017, once in 2018, both times in January. Here he is fighting in June of 2019. I mean, there's just no reason for it.
None.
Against Cletus Selden, who has a drug history. Just, I don't care that he had a doctor's note or whatever. He says he has a condition. There's just, if you have a condition, cool, but there should be a ceiling for the amount of testosterone you should have in your system. Oh, right, there is. And he exceeded it twice. And, he was doing the testing for training camp. So they just dipped their toe in twice at different times and found drugs or found evidence of drug use. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like, obviously you're getting a little window into somebody's program. Look at his body. It's just all the telltale signs are there when you have that knowledge, and then you look at him, like, look at his traps, look at his lats. He looks like a testosterone user, which he admittedly is. It just, I don't know. The sport just drives me crazy. It makes me into a broken record. But, I like Zab Judah. I know Zab Judah. I enjoyed his career. He was chinny in his prime. Why was he going to be any different at 41? So I hope they don't license him again. And I don't know. Somebody needs to write something in depth about how this happened.
It's not going to happen. Fernando, thanks for calling in, brother. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thank you, bye-bye.
All right, man. Peace.
We'll answer really quick a question before we answer another call here on Leaving the Ring. One of the questions on Twitter is from Mark McCahill, right? Yeah. The Schwarz. What would be a bigger upset, Fury losing to Satter or Ruiz over Joshua? I think it depends. I'll give you my opinion here real quick. Everyone, you can jump in. Tom Schwarz is a good fighter. I mean, not a good fighter. He's a guy that hasn't been tested or we haven't really seen a whole lot. I watched a lot of tape on the guy, okay? But I think it depends on the fashion. The way Andy came out, he was a huge underdog, but he didn't allow the judges to weigh in, which we saw on one of the judges' scorecards that they had AJ winning the fight. He took it upon himself to make sure the decision was going to land in his lap. So can Tom Schwarz do that? If he's able to do that, then I think we have a discussion. I think we have a real discussion in whether or not who had the bigger upset. So it depends on Schwarz. What does he do? Does he go out there and try to be fancy, which I've seen him do? He's got a decent right hand. But I've said this. He's a poor version, in my opinion, of Tyson Fury. He has a lot of – there's a lot of similarities. He just doesn't do it as well as Fury. So – does he come out and fight a completely different game plan, and then gives us an give us an upset? I don't know. And if he does, if he goes all the way 12 rounds and he beats Fury on points, I don't think that's going to be, to me, that's like, it's an upset, but it doesn't trump what Andy Ruiz did this past 2 weeks ago on Saturday night. Gabriel.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with all that, and I like the way he moves. I mean, he's not a crappy opponent.
He's not.
Means,
No.
I think he's going to be there to win. He's in good shape. He's got good size, 6'5.5", 24-0, 16 knockouts. He's 25 years old, so he's not experienced at the level he's about to fight at. But he's fought a lot of dudes, with only one loss. No losses. Granted, they're not
But
They're
it's
not
all been
names
in his own
you're
soil,
gonna
though.
it's not names you can recognize. That's what I was gonna say. And they're like 10-0 dudes, 11-0, 12-0.
Right.
This is a big jump. His last dude he fought was 17-1. Um, but we're gonna find out. He KOs a lot of guys, 16 KOs and 24 wins. Now we're gonna find out. Is he only a second-tier monster, or is he going to box his way and get Tyson Fury? Tyson Fury's been on the canvas before. He's not unbeatable, I don't think. It's going to be incumbent on Schwarz to be aggressive, to really let his hands go. He doesn't move his head enough, I think. I think Fury can get him with the jab and dominate. He's got better. I think Fury's probably got better wheels, but Schwarz moves well. He's got good balance. So we're going to see is that power, does it translate to the top level, and is he going to be able to land it? And when he does, if he puts Fury down, can he keep him down? Unlike Deontay Wilder, who couldn't get that done. I think this would be a good fight.
I think it's a really decent fight. I mean, it's not as bad as a lot of folks were kind of tweeting out. It's not a Golovkin and Rose. Where you couldn't really find anything about Steve Rose.
No, this guy's 25. He's not 35.
Exactly.
Rose had the record of a 25-year-old at 35. So, I agree with you. I think it's a quality match. And it could, would it be an upset as big as Ruiz?
Fashion-wise, I mean, look, it has to be how he does it. That's the only way I see it. How Schwarz does it. Here's a question from Samuel from Fresno. Hey, guys, who's the bigger puncher in the fight, you guys think? Is it Fury or Schwarz? Schwarz. His right hand to me is a bigger look, Fury's not the for a heavyweight, he doesn't have a heavyweight punch. Schwarz has been fighting lesser opponents than himself, and he's able to knock guys out. So walking into the ring, you always got to – I don't know what you think, Gabriel, but I always think that anybody that walks in the ring against Fury is always the bigger puncher than him. Fury has kind of shown you that he's really content in outboxing you. He's a great mover. He's not a guy that's going to try to land and turn the fight around with one big punch, but he is strong enough to make you humble. He did that with Wilder. He hurt Wilder in the late rounds. He was able to hurt him when he sits on his punches, but that's not his style. Schwarz is a little different. Like I said, he's a poor version of Fury, but he's got a nice right hand, and he knows how to sit in that right hand. I'm just not sure he can land that right hand against Fury.
Yeah, we're going to find out. We don't know a lot about this guy at the top level. And so. I mean, when you just box racket, he's got fewer fights, he's got fewer knockouts, but just by a little. Tyson Fury only has, he's 27-0 with one draw, a very disputed draw, 19 he's only got a few more fights, and he's 5 years older. He's granted he had some time out of the ring for just a lot of insanity and partying. A lot of drug abuse, a lot of depression, suicidal thoughts, and all that. So we're going to find out what Tom Schwarz is. That's why I think it's a more exciting fight, because it's an ascending guy. I've seen Tom Schwarz before. I want to know. I wish there was kind of a bridge between his last opponent and Tyson Fury, but it's just not the way it goes in the heavyweight division. So I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. I'm actually looking forward to everything that's happening. Question from Armando from Oxnard. Andy, I'm still shocked from Andy Ruiz's upset over AJ, guys. I still can't believe it. But let me ask you guys, in a rematch with AJ, what would he have to do different if they fought again? Well, I got to tell you this, Gabriel, because we really didn't break it down. We were excited, and everybody that was calling in that week when Andy Ruiz pulled the upset and became the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world. With AJ, I watched the fight a couple of times because that's what happens when you see something very historical and it's memorable. You're going to watch it again because you want to catch everything. I tell you what AJ, in my opinion, did wrong in the first match. Okay, one is he allowed the shorter guy to touch his toes with his foot. Okay, and if you watch that fight, Ruiz touch AJ's toes, and then he would throw his right hand. He knew he was in range. So AJ allowed the shorter guy to close that distance, so that if AJ threw a punch, he was able to counter right away. Or if Ruiz wanted to lead his punch, well, they touched toes, and he knew he was in range. That was the first one. Second one is AJ's jab was kind of took it out of the game for two reasons. Okay, I've always told guys, I used to tell my oldest son when I used to train him, was that when you have a taller guy and he has a really good jab, what you do is you jab to his armpit and his rib. What that does, it initially starts to make them hesitant to throw the jab, or it makes them drop their leading hand where they're jabbing from, and it gives you a much more open space to throw at the head. That's the first one. Second one is that when AJ was being lazy with his jab, watch what Ruiz was doing with a left hook. He wasn't even trying to land the left hook to his body. He was throwing the left hook to the forearm of AJ's left jab, which pushed it out of the side. You know, so those little things there, they don't seem like much, but it was enough for the shorter guy to close the distance and to take away what the bigger guy was trying to establish. So in my opinion, AJ's got to go back. He's got to look at the way Lennox Lewis and the Klitschko's did it, okay, is that when a shorter guy closes the distance, well, you tie him up, not in a traditional sense. You tie him up by throwing your arms over his neck and then weighing your weight over that guy's neck, so it forces him to push you up, and it wears out their legs, tires them out. Second one is, he's got to be more aware of his jab. He's got to work on that jab religiously. You know, he's got to really work on that jab, and he's got to learn how to pull it back fast enough, because that's why Ruiz was able to time it. That's why Ruiz was able to jab him to the armpit and just nullified that. Ruiz's game plan was beautiful. Him and Rubio did a great job. Now it's back to the drawing board for AJ, in my opinion. There's a lot of things he needs to work on, but those two things, in my opinion, should help him out a bit more to try to figure out Ruiz's speed. Gabriel?
What Dave said. Yeah, I mean, I think Joshua Ruiz just needs to do what he did before. Keep that pressure, not get into stupid exchanges, dictate with the jab, own that jab to the body. But yeah, I think you're right in your assessment. I mean, the Joshua just needs to fight taller. He needs to keep it simple too, because for the shots, you're going to need to come down the middle, and dictate from on high. He just didn't do that. Like from the first bell, Joshua was moving around, and his lead hand's low, and you're just going like, what is he doing? Why is he fighting this way? What is he afraid of? What is he? I mean, I get you're trying to see something, but it was movement without purpose. It wasn't walking Andy Ruiz into shots. He was just moving himself into bad positions. So I think the next time around, it's have to keep it simple, and not have to try to knock him out with every shot. He's going to need to have to box and keep it from a distance.
Let's patch in another caller really quick, man, before we move on to the questions. We got another question on Twitter as well, but let's see what some callers got to say.
Unlisted number, you were live on Leave It in the Ring.
Oh, hello, Gabe, David, Ahmed from the UK calling. How's it going?
Hey, what's up? Good, I'm doing all right.
I'm good. Yeah, I missed the beginning of the show, so I didn't catch what you guys were talking about, Rolls and Golovkin fight. I thought you guys normally are live on Mondays, isn't it? So I missed the show. But what did you guys think about that fight? About the Golovkin and Rolls?
We thought that he looks good, man. You may want to go, if you want to go in depth, the first half of the show is about that. But I thought Triple G looked fine. I didn't think he looked rusty or extremely hittable like everyone was saying. But it's also hard to tell because Steve Rolls was handpicked to make Triple G look good, which he did.
Yeah, I thought he looked a bit, I don't know if old is the word, but I thought he was kind of getting tired a bit more. Like same in the third fight with Canelo. So I don't think he's getting any better from now on. And I think the trilogy with Canelo, if it's any later than September, I think it could end badly. I do still think Canelo will beat him handily in the third fight. I personally think he could stop him. I wouldn't say like knock him down, but I could see him just overwhelming him so much that he could end up stopping him. But the thing that really surprised me on Twitter, the amount of media writers and guys defending him, like saying that Andrade needs to earn the fight with him. I don't understand that, because I think if Canelo don't fight him, I'm cool with Canelo fighting Andrade, but if Canelo doesn't fight him, then outside Andrade, I can't think of anyone else who he should fight.
Yeah, what other fight is there? That's also, yeah, what I don't understand. If it's not Canelo, well then what other fight is there?
Yeah, because someone was saying on Twitter, there's a couple of writers, I won't get into it too much, but someone made a good point. They said, they were saying that Andrade needs to earn a shot, but then someone said Andrade's got a belt, and Derevchenko was mandated. If that wasn't enough to earn it, and guys like, I think he said Lara or Charlo weren't enough to earn shots, and I mean, that's why I don't understand why he's so much defending the guy, because Andrade, I think Andrade and Golovkin is not a bad fight.
Yeah, like you were all about all the belts, and then you weren't about all the belts. You dropped a belt because Derevchenko was your mandatory. He did all the things that he needed to do to get in that position, but you just dropped the belt rather than give him his shot. We're supposed to respect boxing, all while this is going on, and the Von Smart-Erosion fight's going on. And now Demetrius Andrade has a belt. You're the mandatory to him, but he needs to do something to get a fight with you. I don't understand how that works.
It's you know what's really strange is that a lot of fans forget that, it was never really Canelo going, I want to fight Gennady Golovkin when he was at 147 and 154. It was Gennady Golovkin calling him out.
Right.
Gennady was telling him, hey, you come up and let's fight and blah, 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 blah. He was chasing him. And fans forget that it was the public that put a lot of pressure on Canelo. Nobody was letting him up. Any interview, Gennady Golovkin's name was attached to it in every Canelo fight. Canelo's going to fight this guy. Hey, when are you going to fight Triple G? Are you going to fight Triple G? What's going to happen? Is the fight ever going to happen? Finally, when the kid goes, screw it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And he goes in with a game plan of getting muscled up, which I thought was a terrible idea, because I was like, well, if you're going to muscle up, then you're going to have to stay muscled up for the remainder of your 160 visit, right? They go in there. They fought a fight kind of being tentative, because they really didn't know, is Gennady Golovkin the monster puncher that everybody's saying? They go in there, fight this one game plan, and it didn't work out. It worked out. They got a draw, but I think in the eyes of everybody that had two pairs of eyes and a good sense of boxing knew that Gennady Golovkin won that fight. So
I agree. I still don't think Canelo ran in that fight. I remember people
right.
saying the first fight they were saying he ran. I don't think he ran.
No. So then what happened is Golovkin. It was Golovkin that was not satisfied with the draw and said, hey, I want to fight this guy again. Let's do it. Right? So Canelo's like, well, okay, you want to do it again because you're not happy with that draw. Let's do it, because I think now I have a better sense of how to regulate your power. I have a better sense of how to fight you now. So they do it, and to everybody's surprise, Canelo's the one that comes out Mexican style.
Yeah,
and now we're back with everybody. A lot of the Triple G obsessors are saying, well, he avoided him, didn't want to fight him, and he fought, the judges. It's about the judges, and it's about that he tested, twice and blah 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 blah. And it's like, guys, well, if I remember correctly, the rematch, when Canelo but Vada testing found about the clenbuterol, he went through all the hoops and jumps that he needed to make sure that he was clean and prove to the public he was clean. He did that. Also, he was open to giving Gennady Golovkin more money. He was open about letting Gennady Golovkin ask for, I believe it was the ring size and the judges. You know, so here was a guy that was willing to give you everything. And now
the judges as well.
Right. And now he's asking for one thing, if it's even him saying it, because it was Oscar De La Hoya that tweeted it, saying, hey, we'll do it again. But no, I'm sorry, Canelo did say it. Yeah, we'll do it again, but go get something. Go get a bout. Give me something that's worth it. Now we're back to, oh, he's avoiding him, he's this and this and that. You guys, you can't have it both ways. He chased him, and he's still doing it. It makes no sense.
And the thing I don't understand, that rematch was a normal, like a fair decision. Like, I don't see how anyone could call that robbery. Like, that's when I kind of lost respect for boxing fans in general. Because that was like a normal decision. I scored a draw live. I think I had it on rewatch 7-5 Canelo. I did not think anyway that could have been a robbery. And Golovkin could have fought Billy Joe Saunders before that, but he asked to have that rematch, and that's when I kind of lost it. Like, I kind of lost interest in it because he asked for the fight, and then they just start crying robbery, and now you get it with. It's a lot of guys I actually respect as well, but I don't understand where they're coming from when they try and diminish Andrade's belt because they try and say who has he beaten, but it's not Andrade's fault that Billy Joe Saunders was the one who was caught with, I think, some sort of spray. And then he had to fight whoever they put in line with him and get that belt. But he's still a champion, even though you could class him as a belt holder. But I don't think Golovkin.
Yeah, guys get their belts. I mean, Triple G got a vacant belt and then an interim belt. The champion makes the campaign. Even if you beat the man, Buster Douglas beat the man and then he immediately lost the title. It's all about the guy and what you do with that belt. Who you decide to face, it's your campaign. It's the war that you are waging. And, Canelo's been wily. He's gotten decisions that are close, but those decisions, kind of like with Danny Garcia, if you don't like the guy, then that close decision is a robbery. And the further away it gets in the rearview mirror, it's just an absolute travesty. It just becomes that. And so these, people that don't like Canelo, he gets no benefit of any doubt. And guys that like Triple G, when they look at those two fights, Triple G gets the benefit of every doubt. It doesn't matter that Andre Ward didn't throw body punches. Andre Ward, same thing.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Golovkin landed 6 body shots in the rematch, and I don't care what.
Yeah, how do you win a fight landing 6 body shots? I don't even like Danny Jacobs fight.
The Danny Jacobs fight was close. I thought that's 3 fights. You're not going to get the rub of the green in each of those fights. Like, you leave it to the judges in 3 close competitive fights.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but no one in the rematch, none of the judges got censured. Nobody was like, "Oh my God, what a travesty." I could be wrong. The first fight, people went after Adelaide Bird. But which is funny. Like, there was a particular video blogger that you talked about earlier, Dave, or mentioned that phrase, that went after Bob Bennett, the executive director of the New York State Athletic Commission, after that fight, and was like, how do you have this person as your judge? And, went crazy about it. My theory about this person is that they heard other people on the row, on Boxing Beat, talking about it, didn't hear any specifics, went in there and grandstanded, because when he did this, Bob Bennett replied, hey, I looked over her record for the last 3 years. I didn't see any problem. What was your problem with it? Threw it back for specifics to the reporter, who basically just repeated the sentence they said before because they had no specifics. But nothing like that happened in the rematch. It was a close fight. A lot of people felt one way. I don't really care about media polls because those polls don't tell me how much those people were tweeting during the fight. You're either watching a fight or you're tweeting, and who those people picked, who they picked in the first fight, and also how much did they have to drink before the fight and during it, because people do that. I'm sorry?
That's a very flawed argument, because I've seen a poll of 50 boxers or trainers thought that Canelo won. So I mean, which one is more credible? I think I know who you're talking about. It might have been Montero. I don't know if that's
I don't know who that is.
Okay. Anyway, I was just thinking. I've just seen a lot of people saying that a lot of these. I don't know. I'm not talking about anyone specifically, but a lot of the media guys or writers are quite biased towards Golovkin because I don't see. I'm not
Yeah,
talking
because
about
it's a
anyone
guys' club.
specifically.
These guys don't care about the line between the media and the sports figures. They all just want to be part of a club. They want to say that, get a picture with the guy. They're not covering this objectively and not trying to watch a
No.
fight objectively. Maybe I'm taking the fun out of it. I like a good savage fight. I like a good clean fight and an evenly matched fight. I also like fresh matchups, and I want within a division, I want clarity. I want to know who the baddest guy in the division is, not just based on how he beats up the Steve Rolls of the world, but how he fares at the top level.
I still
I
want to see
don't
the
think there's
trilogy
anything wrong
down
with
the
that.
line. Yeah. I still want to see the trilogy, but I don't understand.
And I'm not saying 5 years. I mean, the guy just signed a 6-fight deal. He's either old or he's able to sign a 6-fight deal. Which is it?
Yeah.
Good point.
I'd rather he has the fight like now,
And
so he could get out the sport in a year
up this
two,
track. Here's another thing, and I know Golovkin had a much more extensive amateur career than Canelo, but in terms of careers without headgear fighting men for money, Saul Alvarez has 55 fights and 391 rounds. Gennady Golovkin
390 professional rounds. Okay.
professional rounds. Gennady Golovkin has 41 bouts, 200 rounds. And has for a long time.
How many amateur bouts did Canelo have? Because I've never really looked into that.
It depends. I've heard a sliding scale. It's less than 50. It might even be less than that. I'd have to go back to my original article that I wrote about him when I was the only other reporter there besides the ESPN Deportes people when Canelo was having his debut in the United States. I'll get back to you on that, and I'll answer you on because I'm pretty sure it's in that article, at least what they claimed at the time. It's not as much as Gennady Golovkin.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I was just going to say, I don't see the same outcry and defending of other fighters. I got no problem. I just think it's a double standard because even though I was a fan of Triple G, let's be real, he's been overtaken by guys like Terence Crawford and Vasyl Lomachenko, and a lot of these guys have moved up and down whatever weight classes and become undisputed in Crawford's case quicker in less fights. And Golovkin, I don't know, for a lot of his career, people are saying was wasted by the German when he was based in Germany. But even after the first Canelo fight, he could have still tried and become undisputed, and he didn't really pursue that fight with Billy Joe Saunders. To me, it looks like he's just been chasing Canelo around, and the way I think he even wants the third fight. Like, don't get me wrong, do you think this is true in a way, though? At this stage in Golovkin's career, he's not the one to call the shots, because he's got no belt, so he's not really the superstar Canelo is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he feels that he was the man in the division, that he's been wronged, and it's taken away from him. So he feels like a deposed king, in a sense. But the reality is, he's the only guy in that division that doesn't have a belt on DAZN.
Yeah, and he's not really a big, like, don't get me wrong, he has sold out arenas, but he's not really a big attraction. Like, I think the two big attractions right now are probably Canelo and Joshua, and I don't think he's on that level, but that fight with Canelo...
he sold well at the Garden. I mean, I think he's a legit attraction. I don't know if, he's a really pay-per-view star on his own. He needed other people. And even then, I mean, I guess with Canelo he did good numbers, but and that's why he wants to go there again. But I mean, I get it. But there's also like 6 fights here.
His traction, has slowed down a bit, but it's because of, you're gonna fight Steve Rose. I mean, I don't even think. I mean, even his own fans weren't happy about that fight, right?
Well, there was a time when I was told that he wanted to fight 3 times a year and was mad that he wasn't, and it was Danny Jacobs' fault that he didn't fight 3 times a year. What happened to that?
I didn't like the Vanez fight. The Vanez fight I thought was very bad. Like that, I think he lost all credibility because that was a guy who hadn't who hadn't fought in 2 years and who never fought at 160. But I just wanted to ask another question. Gabe, do you recall the test with Povetkin? Because this was a very controversial topic. I've seen a lot of people say he was innocent, and then I've seen a lot of people say he was proven guilty with, I think it was the Nandrolone test with, I think it was Walder. Do you recall that case or not?
You're talking about the Meldonian tape.
Was it Maldonado?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Man, that's a whole long story. And actually, I think WADA just came out with something new on Meldonian, if I'm not mistaken. They basically banned it, Meldonian, just out of nowhere. Based on obviously a bunch of research, but they banned it worldwide, and then all of a sudden a bunch of people got ensnared in it. It would seem that Povetkin did say he was taking it, but he felt like this was residual. There's been a new ruling about it. And I'd have to again, I'll look it up. But
is it true though? Someone.
What are you essentially asking me? Do you think I thought that Alexander Povetkin was juicing?
Was he innocent in that case with Meldonian?
No, he was using Meldonian. Was he using it for residual? It's really, it depends on what you choose to believe. But he was using it, and for me, with Meldonian, when they banned it, and you had, from professional tennis players to amateur hockey players to professional boxers getting caught with this drug, to me that tells me that it's something that works, and so they were using it, to gain a competitive edge as athletes do, because doping is as old as the first Olympics. I
heard his story was that he took it when it was legal or something. But
right.
someone said that he passed 4 tests and then failed in the 4th or 5th or something like that.
Right, and so it seemed like it was a kind of a delayed effect. And they're starting to find out, that there are these kind of, like the case of John Jones, they're saying that they've got these, I forget what the exact term they use. But it's kind of like it's pulsing is what they call it, where sometimes you're clean, sometimes because you've had this thing in your system before that it gets released in a fat cell. Depending on how you put it in your body, you're stuck in a fat cell, and then you're burning fat, and then you come up dirty. But it's like a minuscule amount, in a parts per billion or parts per trillion amount. So I'm always just like, why is that in your system? What is it that you're doing? What is it that you're doing that we're not catching?
That's true. I heard someone was saying that VADA destroyed the results. I don't know if that was for the Ostarine or the Meldonium. I can't really recall. But
destroyed the results? I don't know of VADA destroying results.
They either lost the results or samples or something like that. I can't really recall. I was just wondering which one is that for. Because if it's for Meldonium, then...
Oh, yeah. There was a thread. I know a little bit about that, but not enough to go in detail. But from what I heard, it was kind of something that was being put forth, and that VADA was kind of being thrown out of the bus. But I'm not sure if it was necessarily true.
Yeah.
Okay, then he... before I go, then he failed for Ostarine, innit? And Ostarine has always been banned, innit? That's a banned substance, isn't it?
It's a SARM, yeah.
Oh, it's a stimulant. Okay.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah, if you're testing positive for drugs, you're probably doing drugs. There's no other excuse. A good lawyer can get you out of things. WADA backed off on Meldonian so that people can say he was innocent. But bottom line is you're putting drugs in your body to gain a professional advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I get it. Thanks for answering the call. Good talking to you guys.
Hey, no problem. Anytime.
Thank you.
All right, nice.
Really quick, man. Fernando sent us in a tweet. He wants us to know what are our thoughts about Oscar Valdez and Gabe Flores Jr. that happened this past weekend on Top Rank.
I think Gabe Flores Jr. is going to learn a lot from his bout with Salvador Braceno. You can't always be super spectacular. Sometimes you've got to use craft, boxing skills to win. And that was the thing that surprised me when I first saw Gabe Flores Jr. in the gym, man. He was probably 15, coming to work at the Undisputed Boxing Gym. And was how young his dad and trainer was. But that technically skills was at such a young age. I love his movement. I love, his commitment to just, all right, I'm not going to get this guy out of here, so that I'm going to have to box. It wasn't the most exciting fight in the world, but he's a young kid. He's still getting his man strength. He's some years away from getting that kind of strength. So
he hasn't grown into it. He's still a young kid.
This is one to grow on. I really like him a lot, though.
Yeah, same here. I think that that fight that happened in Stockton was a maneuvered matchmaking for him. It made him seem like he's got like one punch KO power, but the reality, it was staged to make it seem that way, right? This one here, his last fight, we saw a kid that still needs a lot of development. How far can he get in the game? I'm not sure yet, because I've always felt that signing a kid at 17, 18 hasn't always been a success. Benavidez Jr. is a prime example. Gomez is another prime example. Yeah, not only their body,
getting knocked out. I thought he was supposed to get trained by Mike Tyson, and and promoted by him, and then knocked out.
Here's the thing: is that we talk about them growing into their body. Also, they haven't even developed completely in mind-wise, like to grasp certain things and understand certain things that they need to do in the ring. So all that takes time, and you can actually, in my opinion, you can derail all that, because he's so young. To me, I don't see signing a guy that young is the most ideal thing to do. Oscar Valdez, man, I mean, he looks strong. I agree with a lot of folks still. They were saying that he's starting to like become a one-punch thrower in the ring. It's true. I mean, he looked a little muscular for me, but I mean, he's I think that Oscar is going to be who he is until he has to dig like really, really deep. So I don't know. There's not a whole lot I could say about Oscar. I mean, I thought he was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was serviceable. I think he's still growing with the Reynosas. He's still kind of figuring out who he is. He's kind of fighting like Canelo a little bit more. Kind of takes space, in a classic boxing stance with the high guard, moves forward behind a jab and tries to protect himself. Fights at a little bit slower pace now, a little more measured pace.
Calculating his pace is that's what I was thinking. Like he's really still trying to, he doesn't know the exact. In my opinion, in some of the spurts that he threw in his punches, there was sometimes I was like, it almost seemed like he was overthinking it. Like, should I let my hands go now? Is this the time for me to let it go? So I think it's still him trying to piece things together, man. In my opinion.
Yeah, it was a developmental fight in a sense. He's still figuring himself out, and with this new trainer. But I like it. He didn't get hit with anything stupid. He's not taking. He's just taking a lot of damage in those fights. The last few fights.
Right.
It's leaky defense. It's one thing to have an unorthodox style, but you can only break the rules if you know them and have mastered them. Sometimes these young fighters, they come up and they're doing it their way, but then at the highest level, really what it is a bunch of holes in your game that people can take advantage of.
I agree with you. And just to add to what you just said right now, a lot of them are doing that come up based on youth, not skill, like you're saying.
Right. And so it's a weird thing. Yeah. It's like usually it's black fighters that get accused of using their athleticism or leaning on it too much, but it happens in all races, and Oscar's a little bit more athletic than your average Mexican fighter. And he fights a little more American, I would say, in some senses, in that kind of unorthodox style. That probably goes back to like maybe Eric Morales is one of those first guys he fought like a Mexican, had the Mexican heart, but also kind of had a little bit of American to his style, a little bit of funk that he could rub on his game. It wasn't a traditional stance, a lot of times. And Valdez is a little bit like that as well. And I just think right now where they're taking him is good. Sometimes you can ruin a guy, ruin his nature by getting him to think a little bit more. And when he was unconscious and just kind of being himself, he was really in the flow and knocking people out. But I think for longevity with this kid, what they're doing with him is right and slowing him down, and taking your time. Knockouts will come.
Man, let's move on to this weekend. Let's check out that fight schedule, and we can get a little bit into that World Series of Boxing.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm very excited about. But I think the main fight that I'm super excited about is obviously against the Dr.
On
KO.
Facebook? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, that one too. Yeah, I love seeing
That's
the
going
emojis.
on in about 15 minutes. Thursday, June 13th at the Avalon in Hollywood, California. Ring TV/Facebook. Cianessa Estrada versus Gretchen Abaniel. That's the main event. Azat Hova Hanasian. Damn, I just blew that. Versus Glenn Porras, super bantamweights. A bunch of other fighters are on the card. Christian Maharis is not on the card. Saturday, June 15th, MGM Grand, Las Vegas, Nevada, on the Plus, ESPN Plus, and the 2, ESPN, I guess the Deuce is what they call it, ESPN 2. Tyson Fury versus Tom Schwartz, heavyweights, 12 rounds, ESPN Plus. Sullivan Barrera versus Jesse Hart, light heavyweights. I think it's going to be an action fight. It's going to be an exciting fight. It's not going to be very distant. 10 rounds, ESPN Plus. And then you got, Dave, very exciting, women's boxing, Michaela Mayer versus Elizabeth Crespo, super featherweights.
Oh, yeah.
I know Dave's going to be watching. And Andy Vences versus Albert Bell out of Sanho, actually, super featherweights in action.
My background.
Am I wrong? Is it time? And it's my hometown as well, although raised in L.A. But I did 6 hard months in Sanho at the beginning of my life.
Wow.
Andy Vences versus Albert Bell. Is it time for Andy to shit or get off the pot? Is it time for him to have a really dominant, spectacular performance on TV?
I think it is time, but I don't think it ever is going to come to that, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah, I like Andy. And I think he's a tough, really gritty kid. I remember a long time ago, man, that I was going to San Jose Pal. And I remember this kid who was coming in, and he wanted to be taught how to fight, right? And the coaches right away, his name was George, okay, this guy. And the coaches right away, they just kind of gravitated to him. And they picked him up, and, right away they kind of ignored everybody else. And I didn't really understand that, right? Here I am hitting the bag, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, what the hell? And the kid had no boxing for him. I mean, the guy couldn't throw a jab to save his life, right? But there was this certain, aura, this chemistry that these guys believed that this kid had, that, if long enough, if he sticks to it, that he could go to that next level. He could do that next thing. But then this coach that was training me, Lupe, looked at me and he said, no, he's just going to be a kid that's always going to be there to fill in the space. And I remember asking him, why? He goes, having the look and having the factor are 2 different things, Dave. And Andy, I think he has the look, but I just don't see the factor, Gabriel. I just don't see it. I see a hardworking a kid that's just going to be a hardworking journeyman, and that's about it. I just don't see that extra. I've never seen it come from him. I've seen him work very hard to get his wins, which I respect, but is he going to go any further from that? Is he going to be super dominant? I don't see it happening. It can. I'm not saying that it can't. But at this, where I'm at right now, where I'm watching his career, I just don't see it. I know. What a dick. I support him. Don't get me wrong, folks. I support him because he's out of San Jose. I was born and raised in downtown San Jose my whole life, the heart of San Jose. Okay, there's people that tell me they're from the east side. There was no east side back when I grew up, Vato Locos. Okay, there was only downtown and the west side, and south side and east side were all just fields at the time. So I'm an original. I'm an original San Jose OG, but I support anybody that comes out of San Jose. I support the teams and all that, and as much as I would want to see Andy take that next step, be that dominant, and show that he could be something special, because that'd be great for San Jose, especially for San Jose, I just don't see him being the guy. I just don't see that. San Jose's not known for developing boxers. They're known for developing MMA fighters. Unfortunately.
And apparently boxing writers and podcasters.
Yes.
Hey-o.
And hockey players now.
Let's see. The arena in Riga, Latvia. I believe Latvia. You know what else Latvia is known for? They're the place that makes Meldonium.
Oh.
Maris Bradis versus Krzysztof Glowacki, cruiserweights, 12 rounds. Unera Dorticos versus Andrew Tabiti, cruiserweights, 12 rounds.
Great fight, dude.
Two fights that are just going to be crackers, just absolute Donniebrooks.
It's not going to be. Let me tell you this. Andrew Tabides is not the guy that was. He's not going to give Dorquitos that Master Nick type of fight. Master Nick was there to fight. Master Nick was a guy that was willing to be in the pocket and trade big shots with him and really make Dorquitos work for the later rounds. Okay, which I thought Master Nick was winning those late rounds, especially the 12th round, because Dorquitos just looked gassed out. Andrew is a guy that's going to use his footwork. He's going to counterpunch. He's more of, God, what's the other guy? Dude, I have it in my head. The other fighter that Floyd Mayweather Sr. was training, that fought Andre Ward, but looked completely shot. You know who I'm talking about. Oh, help me out here. Somebody help me out.
I'm doing a real long. That looks. Jesus. Oh, it wasn't Chad Dawson? No.
Chad Dawson. Yep.
Is it Chad Dawson? It looked completely shot.
Chad Dawson. Yeah,
but it was Ice. Ice was training him at that fight when they fought him down.
Ice, exactly. Yeah. And that's who he kind of reminds me of is the prime Chad Dawson. Knew how to use the ring, knew how to jab. Had this really good ring generalship. Not to that point. I mean, he's not as quick. He doesn't respond as fast as what Chad Dawson used to in the beginning of his reign as a titleist. But to me, Dorquito's not the most gifted, pressure fighter that cuts the ring off. If you come forward, he does beautiful shots to the body. I love that he's able to throw, double fist shots to your body. I like the fact that he loves to throw his right hand. Right off of his double jab. I like the fact that he'll push you back. But with Andre, he's gonna have to find him. So for me, this is a chess match that Dorquito can obviously play and lose, or he decides to be a chess player the way Andy Ruiz did against AJ and make it his fight and go for that KO and just not give any breathing room for Andre to have at all. So that's why I'm kind of excited, because it could really be a boring fight, to tell you the truth, because like I said, if Dorquito doesn't have the right opponent, it could be boring. Just that we've been in such good luck with Dorquito that he's fought everybody that's willing to see whether or not this guy can really KO you. And Mazurek he was game. I would watch that a rematch with that one any day, But yep, who do I got? I'm gonna go with Tabita. I'm gonna go with him. I just don't see Dornico cutting off the ring and catching his body. I just don't see that happening. Dorquito. I'm sorry, Dorquito.
Dorticos.
Dortico.
33 years old. Yeah, like Doritos, but not.
Yeah. But not Doritos.
Yeah, he's the fight with Gassiev was just one for the books, man. Just an absolute war. He's got a lot of rounds on him. His last fight, he went the distance and sets up this fight. I think you're right. Like if Tabiti, he's going to want to fight at a more measured pace, kind of keep it a little bit long range. But Dorticos is also, that's where his power is. I think it could be a long range shootout. But Dorticos is a guy that's also, he gets a little bit, aggressive. He's got all that power. 21 knockouts. against 23 wins, one loss by late KO. I don't know. I think he's still got something left in the tank. I think he's the more dangerous puncher, and he can do it from long range. So while he's going to have to find the guy.
My only thing is that Masanic was able to get him to that 10th round, and Dorticos, dude, he looked gassed going into the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So Tabiti, if
he's going to have to find him early.
He's going to have to find him Tabiti early. And if Tabiti can pull him into those 8th, 9th, and 10th rounds, the championship rounds, I think he'll be able to tee off of a slow and gassed out Dorquitos. So I don't know. It makes a very interesting match. But I think you're right. Dorquitos left. His jab, and if he follows up with that right, that's where he does get his power from, and he's able to push him back and make Andre make the wrong decision by pulling back. He can catch him. Very interesting fight, man. Love it.
And then also from the First Direct Arena in Leeds, England, also on ESPN Plus, you got Josh Warrington versus Kid Galahad featherweights, JJ Metcalf versus Jason Wellborn junior middleweights in action, and Zelfa Barrett versus Leon Woodstock super featherweights, and then a whole bunch of bouts in support there. From Australia on ESPN Plus, at the Seagulls Rugby League Club in Tweedheads, Australia. Andrew Maloney takes on Ruben Montoya, no relation. Super flyweights, 10 rounds in action. Jason Maloney takes on Cesar Ramirez, bantamweights, 10 rounds. And Reagan Deseix versus Mitchell Whitelaw, 10 rounds. Whole lot of fighting going on this weekend, especially on the Plus. So if you've got absolutely no life whatsoever on Saturday, Saturday is your day.
Saturday is going to be my day, and happy Father's Day to happy Father's Day to everybody
it's your
on
day.
Sunday. Yeah.
You take one early because you're the the Dave father.
Dude, so. I'm excited for Saturday. As much as I see guys bitching and moaning about when the Gennady Golovkin and Canelo fight should happen, the rubber match, they're going to miss out on a Saturday night of fights starting from 11 a.m. on DAZN all the way down to when it gets dusk. So I'm more excited about that. Schwarz, Tom Schwarz, could he pull it off? I'm not sure, but I want to watch it. Fury is the most out of all the heavyweights. He's the most technically sound. He's a guy that I think every heavyweight should be worried about because he's so light on his feet. But Schwarz is also very quirky, man. Really, really different. So styles make fights. This style could either be a dud or it could be really fun to watch. And in Barrera, dude, Sullivan Barrera back in the ring. I think we're gonna have some good nights on Top Rank and on DAZN, man. Anyways, everybody, thanks for calling in.
We got 2.5 minutes. We got one more caller left. Let's see if we can throw him in. Just for shits and giggles. 647, you're live on Leave It in the Ring.
Shits and giggles. It's a no call.
Oh.
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm calling in on my cell, man. I missed the whole podcast. I was telling Gabe that I was invited to see the Shaft movie.
Oh, okay.
It really wasn't. It wasn't that good to come out on Netflix.
It didn't look good.
No, the one with both. Like a long time ago, that was a lot better than this. They tried to do the whole buddy. I didn't really like it.
Mm-mm. But Shaft should never say I'm too old for this shit. Never too old for this shit. Like going that Lethal Weapon route. Don't do that to Shaft.
No, I mean they're trying to bring him out as like a young guy. Like it was like Downtree, the grandfather, Samuel L. Jackson, like the son, and then the grandson is like the new guy that's going to take over the franchise. But I'm excited about it. What I am excited about though is the return of the Gypsy King. How are you guys feeling about that?
Oh, I can't wait. I think it's gonna be a good fight. I think Schwarz, has got some skills to bring to bear, and we're gonna see about his power and his chin at the top level. But Fury's not known as a knockout machine, so he's gonna be looking to box. So we're gonna find out if Schwarz can corner him and make a fight out of it. Fury can get put down, but we know he also can get back up. So I think it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. The thing that always intrigued me about Fury, especially recently, is that he was just not in shape for the Wilder fight. I mean, you could see it in his body, and the fact that he was able to lose so much weight and box the way he did, essentially out of shape, is pretty incredible. And what I like to tell people, or remind people about Fury when they mention his power, look at Deontay's face after that fight. The reason he got touched up like that is because Fury's actually a converted southpaw. He's actually left-handed, so his jab is like extremely strong when he's fighting out of the orthodox stance. So he's not really throwing with that much power with the backhand. He's really targeting his work with the jab. So I'm really excited about it. I like, as you guys do, watching guys box. Not always, we all appreciate the knockouts, but I do also appreciate good boxing, and Fury is definitely a good boxer.
I just think he's a credit to the game. He's always exciting to watch. We're up against it, so we gotta.
Really quick, I just want to mention this because I did want to mention this earlier. I know it's not being recorded and all that, but isn't it weird that Fury is a guy that doesn't have the look of a heavyweight champion? He looks overweight, came back and fought Wilder and brought it to a draw, but there was really no upset. Nobody was really upset. You didn't see the Stephen A. Smiths of the world get so upset that he gave Wilder a run for his money, whereas Ruiz brought the worst out of a lot of these media guys. I just find that so weird how everything was kind of double standard when you kind of more likely have two guys that are not the heavyweight physique of ideal.
Stephen A. is just a moron, man. I mean, I have a tough time listening to talk about basketball or other sports. When he gets into boxing territory, it's actually cringing. It is. I remember he was lamenting the fact. This is just to give you an idea about the hypocrisy of Stephen A. Smith. He was lamenting the fact that there aren't, as what he calls, quote unquote, as many black players in the Major League Baseball anymore, right? And someone was pointing out, well, wait, what about David Ortiz and Robinson Cano and all of these other guys? He's like, yeah, well, they're from the Dominican. It's not really like black from the United States. You know where his family's from? He's from the Caribbean. He's from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Check it. He's from the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is where? Right off the coast of Puerto Rico. So it's like, I mean, get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah, man. Oh, God.
And then he gets into boxing talking about Andy Ruiz, the butter bean, and all of this other stuff. What I was kind of disappointed at was that no one focused on AJ's just lack of ability to do something that elite fighters, whether it was Lewis or even other people like Eric Morales, let's say, someone who doesn't always get the credit that they deserve for being a good boxer. Partially, I think, because he's Mexican, but that's a whole other topic. That little half step backwards at an angle, whether it's right or left, and then a snapping jab in the right hand. AJ was totally incapable of fighting going backwards. And Andy Ruiz totally exploited that. One, got up in his chest, inside his ideal punching range. And two, forced him to backpedal. He had no clue how to take a backward step or a half step, maintain distance, and snap with their jab and come back with a right hand. That's what Lewis did. That's what great fighters do, like Eric Morales, others I could go down the list on. They're able to throw the jab going backwards. They're able to throw the right hand going backwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he did expose them. And that's all his corner was asking him to do, was throw 1-2s down the middle. And
has he been trained to do that, Gabe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing that Lennox Lewis did constantly. It's jab and step, jab and step.
You could be trained to do that. Listen, you could be trained to do that, but when your mind is clouded, that's another story. When I used to go and visit the wild card, I used to watch guys spin around over and over, just spin and spin and spin, and then start shadow boxing.
The dizzy technique.
Yeah, they trained themselves to be, if they got into that situation, you don't panic. And AJ didn't even know how to create space for him to get a breather. I mean, there was just so much wrong that he did. Anyway, but I got to get going because dinner's on the table and stuff.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, man. But again, everybody have a great, safe weekend. Enjoy your Saturday, and happy Father's Day. And brother, thanks for calling in, man. Gabriel, till next time, brother.
Peace.